echoes in the basement. My life, woven through the threads of emergency calls and the blurred lines between existence and the abyss, has always been rooted in the tangible. As an EMT, I stand on the front lines of human frailty, a silent witness to the moments that define the brink of life and death. My fascination with the unexplained, however, tugs at the edges of my scientific skepticism, inviting questions that often go unanswered. Despite this curiosity, my stance on religion and the supernatural remains firmly planted in skepticism. I find myself caught between the worlds of empirical evidence and the shadowy realm of mysteries that refuse to be solved. The hospital I call my second home is more than just a structure. It is a living, breathing entity rich with history and saturated with echoes of those who have passed through its doors. Some of these souls were snatched back from the brink, their lives restored by tireless efforts of those who work within its walls. Others were not as fortunate, leaving behind nothing but memories and the cold silence of loss. This hospital, with its sprawling corridors and hidden recesses, stands as a monument to both triumph and tragedy, a place where the essence of countless lives lingers in the air like a palpable force. Nestled within the heart of this ancient edifice is its basement, a sprawling labyrinth of forgotten rooms and corridors, cluttered with the detritus of years gone by. It is here, in the shadowy depths beneath the hustle and bustle of daily hospital life, that the past seems to cling most stubbornly to the present. The basement, with its storied history and its air of neglect, is seldom visited, especially at night when the rest of the hospital settles into a tense quietude. It was against this backdrop and a night steeped in the ordinary routines of emergency medical service that I found myself drawn into a story that would challenge the very foundations of my skepticism. A routine call, a need for a new gurney due to unforeseen circumstances, led me down into the bowels of the hospital, into a realm where history and the present collided with unexpected force. Little did I know, as I descended into the basement, that I was about to step into a chapter of my life that would forever alter my understanding of reality, blurring the lines between what is seen and unseen, and pushing me into the vast uncharted territories of the unexplained. The night unfurled like a dark tapestry, woven with the chaos and unpredictability that define the life of an EMT. It began with an urgency that was all too familiar, a call that thrust us into the whirlwind of a particularly violent incident. A patient consumed by pain and fear had turned their desperation into destruction, leaving our gurney in tatters, a casualty of their turmoil. The need for a new one was immediate, an essential tool in our unending battle against time and fate. Thus, with the weight of necessity pressing upon me, I found myself tasked with venturing into the depths of the hospital to retrieve a replacement from the basement storage. A journey that seemed simple but was laden with the unexpected. The basement of the hospital is a place that time seems to have forgotten. A sprawling maze of rooms and corridors filled with the remnants of what once was. It's a repository of history, where outdated equipment and furniture are entombed in dust, each piece a silent witness to the countless stories that have unfolded above. By day, it's seldom visited, a quiet reminder of the hospital's enduring legacy. But at night, it transforms into something else entirely. More than just a physical space, it becomes a realm of echoes, where the whispers of the past seem to cling to the shadows. As I made my way down to the narrow staircase, the sounds of the hospital above faded into a hushed stillness, replaced by the oppressive silence that dominated the basement. The air was cooler here, heavy with the scent of aged concrete and the musty fragrance of neglect. Fluorescent lights flickered reluctantly to life as I passed, casting long, wavering shadows that seemed to dance just beyond the edge of vision. Despite the eerie atmosphere, my initial confidence remained unshaken. I was, after all, on a routine errand, one dictated by necessity rather than curiosity. The practical part of my brain cataloged the journey as just another task in the long list of duties that filled my nights. Yet, as I ventured deeper into the basement, navigating through the cluttered aisles of forgotten medical paraphernalia, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The stillness of the early hours, usually a comforting companion in the chaos of my profession, now felt heavy with anticipation. The silence was not just absence of sound. It was a presence in it itself, oppressive and thick with the weight of unseen eyes. It was as if the basement itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to pierce the quiet. My footsteps echoed unnervingly in the vast emptiness, a stark reminder of my solitude. In that moment, surrounded by the shadows of the past, my confidence began to waver. The familiar, rational part of my mind wrestled with the primal, instinctive fear that crept in, unbidden. The basement, with its labyrinthian layout and air of abandonment, no longer seemed merely a storage space, but a threshold between worlds, where the veil between the present and the echoes of history grew perilously thin. Little did I know, as I made my way through the dimly lit corridors, that I was about to encounter something that would challenge the very foundations of my skepticism, turning a routine errand into a night I would never forget. The deeper I ventured into the basement, the more the silence seemed to close in around me, a tangible force that enveloped me in its oppressive embrace. Amidst the clutter of forgotten equipment and the shadowy corners where light dared not linger, my focus remained steadfast on the task at hand. That was until a sudden, unexpected tug at my shirt pulled me from my thoughts, a gentle but firm grip that seemed to come from nowhere. At first, I dismissed it as a mere accident, a consequence of navigating through the cramped spaces filled with protruding edges and tangled cords. My mind, ever the skeptic, found solace in the rational explanation that my shirt had simply caught on some forgotten piece of equipment. I paused, untangling myself with a chuckle, attributing it to the incident to the cluttered environment. The logical part of my brain cataloged the event as a minor inconvenience, nothing more than a brief distraction from my mission. However, as I continued on, the air around me seemed to thicken, charged with an unspoken anticipation. It was as if the basement itself was holding its breath, awaiting a moment that would shatter the veneer of normalcy I had clung to. And then, without warning, it happened again. This time, the tug was more insistent, more deliberate, as if to ensure it captured my undivided attention. There was no denying the intention behind it, no object to blame for the sudden jerk that pulled me backwards. Before I could even process the reality of the situation, the silence was broken by a voice, crystal clear and unmistakably real.
"I am lost,"
it whispered, the words tinged with the innocence and confusion of a lost little girl. The voice, so out of place in the stifling silence of the basement, cut through the air like a knife, leaving a palpable tension in its wake. In that instant, my heart seized, a rush of adrenaline flooding my system as the primal parts of my brain screamed in alarm. Fear, raw and unfiltered, coursed through me, a fear not of the known, but of the inexplicable presence that had somehow breached the walls of my skepticism. Disbelief clouded my mind, a tumultuous storm of questions with no logical answers. How could a child's voice, so clear and so close, exist in this abandoned place? Where could it have come from in the desolate confines of the basement? The overwhelming sense of not being alone crashed over me like a tidal wave, leaving me reeling in its wake. The darkness around me seemed to pulsate with unseen life, the shadows stretching and twisting into forms that my mind refused to acknowledge. My breath came in short, sharp gasps, the sound deafening in the eerie silence that followed the voice. The rational explanations that once grounded me now lay shattered, replaced by the undeniable truth of my encounter. Frozen in place, I struggled to reconcile the impossibility of the situation with evidence of my own senses. The fear that gripped me was not just of the voice or the tug at my shirt, but of the realization that the world was far more complex and mysterious than I had ever allowed myself to believe in. In that moment, standing alone in the basement, I was confronted with the reality of the unknown, a reality that challenged everything I thought I understood about the world. In the aftermath of the voice, the silence of the basement seemed to press in on me with an almost physical force, a suffocating cloak of darkness that threatened to swallow me whole. The rational part of my brain, trained to remain calm under pressure, scrambled to regain control, to make sense of the senseless. Yet the fear that coursed through me was primal, a visceral response to the undeniable reality of the voice in the dark. With a shaky hand, I reached for my radio. The familiar weight of it, both a comfort and a lifeline in that moment of utter isolation. I called for my partner, my voice betraying none of the turmoil that raged within me. I cited the need for assistance with the gurney, a thinly veiled excuse that masked my true desire, not to be alone in the face of the unknown. The wait for their arrival was agonizing, each second stretching into eternity as I stood frozen in the spot where I had heard the voice, my every sense heightened to the point of pain. As the moments ticked by, my emotions waged a war within me. Fear, raw and consuming, battled against the ingrained instinct to help, to reach out to the source of the voice that had so clearly articulated a plea for assistance. It was a voice that spoke of vulnerability, of being lost and alone. And everything in me as an EMT wanted to respond, to offer aid and comfort. Yet how does one help a presence that cannot be seen, a voice that belongs to no visible source? The rational explanations for what had occurred, or what I thought had occurred, began to crumble as I stood there in the darkness, leaving me grappling with the possibility that I had encountered something beyond the scope of my understanding. The fear of what might be lurking in the shadows, watching me with unseen eyes, was a palpable force, yet it was countered by the undeniable pull of my duty as a caregiver, even in the most extraordinary of circumstances. This internal conflict was a strange sensation, a tug-of-war between the skepticism that had always guided me and the undeniable evidence of my own senses. The part of me that had dedicated my life to helping others, to rushing in where others might hesitate, now faced the ultimate test. Could I extend that same compassion, that same desire to assist, to a voice in the dark, to an entity that defied all logical explanation? The moment my partner arrived, the oppressive atmosphere of the basement seemed to lift slightly, diluted by their presence. Together we embarked on a thorough search of the area, our flashlights cutting through the darkness, revealing the mundane reality of stored equipment and stacked supplies. With each empty corner and silent room we uncovered, my anxiety ebbed, replaced by a growing sense of confusion and disbelief. How could such a clear, distinct voice emerge in a place utterly devoid of life? Our search yielded nothing. No lost child hiding among the shadows, no explanation for the voice that had seemed so real. As we worked, the tension that had gripped me began to unravel, leaving behind a myriad of questions. The relief of finding the basement empty, of confirming there was no one in need of help, was tinged with an unsettling realization. The voice I had heard, the plea for help, had no source that could be discovered or explained by a sweep of our flashlights. It was a mystery that deepened the shadows around us, lending them a new, enigmatic quality. With the search concluded and the new gurney in tow, I found myself confiding in my partner about the experience. The words tumbled out in a rush, a mixture of fear, bewilderment, and an earnest seeking of validation. Their reaction was one of quiet contemplation, a measured response that neither dismissed my account nor fully embraced it. It was in this moment of shared vulnerability that a door seemed to open between us, a gateway to deeper, more hidden experiences. Encouraged by their willingness to listen, I began to share my story with others in the hospital, a tentative probe into a world I had never considered. What I discovered was a tapestry of unexplained encounters, a collection of experiences that had quietly circulated among the staff. Nurses, CNAs, and physicians alike recounted their own brushes with the inexplicable, particularly around the ICU and hospice areas, where the veil between life and death is at its thinnest. Each story, each whispered account added a thread to a growing narrative of mystery that seemed to permeate the hospital. There were tales of unseen hands providing comfort in the final moments of life, of whispered names carried on the air with no apparent source, of the sensation of being watched by benevolent guardians from beyond. These stories, shared in hushed tones and often with a glance over the shoulder, painted a picture of a hospital alive with more than just the hustle and bustle of daily medical care. This hidden tapestry of experiences, once uncovered, changed the way I viewed the hospital and my place within it. The skepticism that had once defined my outlook began to waver, softened by the undeniable weight of shared experiences. The hospital, with its long history of life, death, and the in-between seemed to hold within its walls a reservoir of unexplained phenomena, a collective memory of those who had passed through its doors. As I delved deeper into these shared secrets, I found a sense of solidarity with my colleagues, a shared acknowledgment of the mysteries that dance just beyond the edge of understanding. This journey into the unknown, sparked by a voice in the dark, had led me to a profound realization that within the confines of our hospital, the realm of science and the realm of the supernatural were not mutually exclusive, but intertwined, each leaving its mark on the other in ways we were only beginning to understand. In the wake of that night, my perspective on the world around me, both seen and unseen, has undergone a profound transformation. The basement encounter, coupled with the mosaic of unexplained experiences shared by my colleagues, has opened my eyes to the vast expanses of mystery that lie just beyond the boundaries of our understanding. While my skepticism towards religion and the supernatural has not entirely dissipated, it has been irrevocably softened, reshaped by the realization that there are phenomena in this world that defy logical explanations.